The Endurance Asia podcast.
And always tell a truthful story if they ever ask. Stop the complaining cause things ain't that bad.
Hey, Mr. Ryan Blair. It's so good to see you again, sir, and see you surrounded by the mountains after an epic weekend in Chamonix and around Mont Blanc. Mate, it's a pleasure, and we're good to welcome you back on the Endurance Asia podcast. Mate, how's it going? Like, how's your 2 days off the back of what I reckon has been one of the most epic weekends in the history of trail running? Like, it really, everyone that I know in the trail running community have just been glued to the screens, and you just see everything blowing up on the socials, world records being broken. Mate, how's it been on the ground there?
Oh, just incredible. I mean, it's as we were talking a little bit before we started recording, this year I also participated in the OCC before things, got really full on with the team, with the support and coordinating film crews and all the rest of it. And I was, of course, I've experienced the finish and the start and all that before and stuff, but to actually run one of the races and see what's going on with every village being out there, and it really is like, felt like the Tour de France of trail running, and every, from grandma to little kid with the cowbells and with, just the energy you get all along the way is just huge. And then having the live, of course, I think you were watching, right? The live TV coverage has improved so much. So that just adds a whole nother level of buzz and following. And the event was just, it was probably, I think without question, the most competitive field in history here. And just with, post-COVID, things opening up finally, and a lot of the, having the mainland Chinese back, who of course missed last year, and really almost every big name in the sport, and also the brands, the brands have all just up their game in terms of their presence here, in terms of their support and team. So yeah, man, it was freaking epic. Yeah.
And talking about, so like, obviously representing the North Face adventure racing team, this is a team from Asia that you pulled together. And is this the fourth or fifth time you've taken a team to UTMB?
So we've been involved with our team because, our team goes back 17 years. And we sent Stone here several years, and Stone, of course, was, he was really the first Chinese, to really kind of put this, I think, this race in people's, in their minds back in Asia, because, when I say Chinese, I don't just mean Hong Kong Chinese, mainland Taiwanese, Hong Kong. He was the first one to crack the top 20 of any Chinese, background, and he did it several times. He competed here, God, is it 4 or 5 times? And so that was early on, also, that when the race was, it's like going back almost 15 years maybe. And so, anyways, but we never, it wasn't like a whole team thing where we were able to bring in, like we are now with multiple athletes. We had 4 here this year. We had 3 here last year, and then 2019 we had also 4. So with David from Malaysia and also joining us. So really the goal is if our athletes, especially if they're ranked number 1 in their country, we got to do all we can to get them here and be part of this. It really is the de facto world championships of the sport. So yeah, we got a fair amount of experience now. And it feels, every year it feels more and more, not necessarily easier, but just familiar, and confidence level going into this year was huge for the whole team. We came early as well. We can talk about that maybe later. But yeah, so.
Yeah, and so do you want to just recap some of the results? So you obviously kicked off with the OCC to begin with, which is, I think it's like madness. I can only imagine the amount of logistics that must have gone into this whole week. Like, setting up the house, making sure all the athletes are tapering properly, they're all being fed, got all their kit and everything, and also throwing OCC in just before that, when you're supporting four athletes that are running the 3 UTMB and 1 Triple C. Like, are you mad?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be mad, and I mentioned to you before. It's I think my experience in the sport of adventure racing, especially expedition racing, where you're out there sometimes for 5 to 7 days on averaging maybe 2 to 3 hours sleep a night, and I think that prepared me well for this kind of thing. So it kind of felt like a 3 or 4 day expedition race. But I was careful with my race at the OCC because that was never planned. I'd won my age group in Spain at the Valderon. That the prize was getting a ticket to the OCC. So I kind of I got to take it. And I knew being the day before of CCC and UTMB, I knew it was a little bit it was going to add a little bit of pressure. And then it turned out I didn't have a good race at all. I just had done too much training with the team and their recce's and stuff, and just which was fine. It was, for me, the focus wasn't on me here. That was more kind of a fun thing and experience. And of course I wanted to do well, but had ended up having stomach issues. But the first thing was just the legs were not there. But the main thing was, when I knew my race was unraveling, which was only like an hour into it, I knew there was like 7 hours left. I was like, I reached a point like halfway where I'm like, Ryan, just be smart here. Don't just, you're going to be destroyed at the finish no matter what, but you can't afford to be, like in the hospital or just like, completely wrecked. So it was good to get through that and kind of finish slowly, easily, because it was straight into the next 6 o'clock the next morning. We're up and we're heading to the start of the CCC. And gosh, it kind of, after we'll talk in detail probably about Sunmaya's performance, but it was after what she did, second fastest time in the history of the race. After what she did, it was like, it kind of, no matter what happened the rest of the event with the guys and UTMB and everything, it was already just a huge success for us this year.
Yeah, let's kick off with Sunmaya as well, because she's only 23. Like, we've known her about her for like, she was in a race in Hong Kong. You did.
Yeah, she ran Sai Kung in 2017, I think, and I remember her passing me early on, and then didn't see her again until after the race
outright. And so she would have only been like a teenager then, right?
Yeah, how old is she now, Ryan?
She's 23. So kind of in a nutshell, her story, is, it's a wonderful story. It's she was at age 16 or 17. Her future in her small village high in the mountains at like 2,800 meters or whatever was going to be like an arranged marriage and basically, farming, which is, it's the normal thing there. It's not like anything abnormal, but she had taken part in some school races, just like some fun thing, I think, at school or something. And she knew that she loved running and she was good at it and she wanted to be an athlete. And she was really lucky where there was like a dirt track and like a running club in the next town over from her in Jumla. And the guy who ran that was one of the kind of like old school successful marathon runners in Nepal. And he really, Harry, he really took her under his wing. And the whole kind of system there is more trying to gear towards, track racing and maybe doing 10Ks and maybe eventually like a marathon or something. So it's not geared towards trail running or anything or mountain running. But she was able to get involved in that and move to Jumla, and that's kind of where things started. And then she had a lot of people help her the last several years, and especially this guy Richard, who is one of the leading race organizers in Nepal. He gave her like a free entry to some races, and saw the results and the potential, and they got her, you know, here and there. They raised, you know, some money, and kind of here and there got her to a few overseas races and stuff like that. So that's why she came to Hong Kong. She did trail walker with a all Nepalese girl team 1 year too. And so but she never had you could see this world-class potential with some of her results and stuff, but she just never had this, a real team support, a system around her, from physiotherapy to proper coaching, to everything else you need when you're at a race and all that. And it was actually Pav, I think, you know, maybe Pav, he's a journalist and also a trail runner himself who lived in China many years. He knew her from bringing her to a China race, and he was, you know, he's a friend of mine, and he was the one that's like, Ryan, I mean, you're like, she needs your team, so, you know, like, she'd just be perfect. And I've been looking for a woman with world-class potential for several years, because we hadn't signed a new woman in a while, and that's something I definitely wanted to do, but I wanted to be the right person. And more than anything with the team, you know, after all these years, like, using using our team to really not just give, you know, race opportunities for athletes that have potential, but I want to help change their lives. I want to see trail running and sport really have the chance to change their lives, and see a fire in their eyes as an athlete where they're going to take advantage of the opportunity. And so with Sunmaya, that was definitely, you know, what I saw. And that's about 1.5 years ago or 2 years ago, you know, brought her on the team, and it was during COVID. So the whole thing was a bit, I mean, I actually just, in the end, I just pay it out of my own pocket to help her and stuff, because sponsors were like, oh, but she can't race, she's over in Nepal, like, why should we be supporting her? And I'm like, listen, guys, she got world-class potential. I said, forget it. I'll support her. You guys will see. And then you'll be, mark my words.
Then they'll be queuing up. They'll be queuing up. And the price has just gone up as well, isn't it, Ryan? The sponsorship fees are going up.
I mean, yeah, I mean, this, like, I told her at the finish line, I mean, Thailand already had changed her life. You know, her result winning Thailand.
She podiumed the overall race at UTMB for Thailand, and obviously came first woman. Like, what a run! And it was just Jay ahead of her, and yeah, I forget who else was ahead of her. But what an amazing run that was!
Oh, and to beat Mira Rai, the most famous, you know, name in Nepal for trail running, you know, beat her by 2 or 3 hours, and then she caught the French guy she caught at the end of the race was top 30 men UTMB here, last year. So she showed her world-class potential in that race, and it was it was life-changing. She went back to Nepal. She was like on the, you know, morning national news. She was paraded around her region and given like some extra money from the local government. All kinds of stuff happened that was really cool and really, you know, I think you know, life-changing. But now I can't wait to see what's going to happen. She flies back today, and it'll be cool to see just you know, where things go from here. And yeah, I mean, she was, as you all know, right, it was one of the stories of the whole event. The way that she ran the perfect race, just fearless. But I must step back. I honestly, we didn't even know if she was going to be on the start line.
Yeah.
She had this really good training block preparation. We kept her in Nepal and didn't bring her early to Europe because we knew it'd be more comfortable for her at home. She already has plenty of elevation there to get ready for this, you know, this course here. And we brought her with the plan was to bring her in like 2 weeks or, you know, like 12 days before, have a good 3 days of recce's, and then have a nice taper and everything. And all was going perfect until like less than 2 months before the race. I'm trying to think, maybe it was like 7 weeks before, I get this message, and she's totally blown up her Achilles tendon. And I mean, that's an injury that, you know, that can end your season, if not your year. And luckily, you know, Andy, our coach consultant in Australia, and I very quickly just like, you know, managed her situation in Nepal and in terms of what to do, and like completely stopped running. I flew her to Kathmandu, found I got like the best, this lovely lady named Priti is one of our key people on the ground in Kathmandu who's been, excuse me, helping with a lot of local things for her. And we tracked down like the best physiotherapist we could in Kathmandu, and we kept her there for 2 weeks. We did treatment. We very gradually got her on a treadmill, got her on just walking, and had like maybe a week or so of running again and getting things moving. And it was just like, you know, every day it's like, okay, is it gonna just blow up? Because you know how the Achilles is. I mean, it's just like I had for 7 years Achilles issues, and it's just like nightmare. And yeah, we so much drama. I mean, I'm just trying to make it short if I can. But anyways, we when even on the airplane, you know, getting her here during the recce's was really going to be her final really test of uphill running, to where, God, is it going to hold? And I was just holding my breath, you know, each day on the recce's, and it totally held. And I mean, it helps a lot when you're 23, you know, as far as how fast you can recover. And I think just being really careful, and sometimes when you get injured like that and you have actually a break, your body recovers kind of even more, and you kind of reboot. And as long as you can have a little bit of window to get that final training block in, I mean, we only had a couple weeks to play with, but it all worked, and the recce's went so good. And I mean, I could see on the recce's, okay, I mean, this is going to be exciting. The worry was, does she have the distance in her legs, you know?
Yeah.
And we were able to, and it was great. Having Chung here was great too. He kind of was like big brother on a couple of the runs. He joined her and stuff. And anyway, you know, we managed to get a like a 39K run in, which was kind of like her longest run in like a month. And then a couple of shorter runs, and it obviously it all worked, you know. It was just, but to have that, you know, most people didn't know that was going on behind the scenes, and for her to run the second fastest time in the history of the race, I mean, and the way it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and so she came second overall in the race, and so yeah, it was the fastest year ever. But how did the race play out, Ryan? What was the and I'd like, from following it, it was neck and neck at the front of the field there. It's like she definitely was giving it a push for the top of the podium.
Oh yeah, our game plan was like, you know, it was just, Sunmaya, you got to run this first, you know, especially to Lafui, so 40K, you know, that's over the first two big climbs, you know, the out of Courmayeur start, and then over Grand Col Ferret, and then it's like the longest downhill in the race. That was, I mean, super key just to be smooth through there. But I mean, so here she was like in third place, and I'm like, God, I hope this is smooth. And you know, so she was right in the top 3-4 off the gun, and she didn't realize it though. She thought she was a bit further back, and then the first time I could see her was the 54K mark in Champay-Lac, and that's when she finally realized, like, wow, okay, I'm like in third, and she was right with the girl in second. So she came in there, and you could just see. I mean, it was like her in. I've rarely seen somebody so locked in, so focused. So it was so cool to see. And we have a behind the scenes video where we filmed in the CPs and stuff. It's going to be released probably this weekend. And it'll be fun for people to see just her. I mean, you'll see her eyes. It's just incredible. And so she stormed through her three transitions, give you an idea how like locked in she was, everyone was 60 seconds or less.
Wow.
Just, incredible. And so,
and I suppose that was you helping out at those checkpoints as well, just like doing your adventure racing transition, right? Fill up bottles, stick this food in here, eat that, and like she basically just sits there like a Formula One car while you're running around. And but yeah, was it just you, or did you have a few other support crew in the helping out?
You could only have one person as the rule here. So I mean, I'm there, but I mean, it's coordination, it's teamwork, but she has to make that decision. She's got options and what to take with her. How's her stomach feeling? Is it Coke? Is it water? Is it both? Is it sports drink? Is it what brand of gel is feeling what flavor? So I'm just trying to have as many options available. Of course, we're trying to not make it too crazy, so it's not, not too chaotic, but yeah, like I said, you'll see in the video. I mean, it's just like she's so locked and just boom, 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 and I'm trying to help as much as I can, and just but it was really more her than me that just was if super efficient, super pro in her transitions. And then once she heard she was in third, and then the next CP she's in second. I mean, it was just like she was just surging with adrenaline, and then it's a matter of, well, how far ahead is first? And I mean, like, I forget. I mean, I need to look at the data again. But she came into that last CP in Balashin, and I mean, like, that's not 18 or 19K to go in the course, and one more big climb. She put like 9 or 10 minutes or something into the leader on the final climb, and this girl is already on record pace out in front, who had a 25-minute gap at one point. Sunmaya claws it back to 2 minutes at the last CP before the final downhill, and by then it turned dark. And I mean, we were trying to follow on TV, and the camera, they didn't have enough cameras at that point. It was a bit unfortunate. There's a bit of a window there where they lost the front of the race, but it would mean an insane battle because the UTMB had already started, right? So they had some cameras over there. But the girl, it's funny, I talked to her at the finish. The French girl who won saw her headlight, and it was just like, oh, and she's like, I can't, she just couldn't fucking believe it, because she's on, sorry, my language, she's on record pace, and then this girl catches her, and then that record pace, the history of the race, and she's like, Jesus. And she just like she managed to find another gear and just leg it downhill. Sunmaya is so fast downhill, she's chasing, and the girl just held it out, and I think it was 4 minutes or so in the end. But what a exciting finish, and for both of them, under the record. And cool.
Blandine Lirandel was the French lady that won it. But yeah, I mean, within 4 or 5 minutes, to be able to claw that back from 25 minutes behind with a couple of with like 25K to go, or 20K, 18K to go. What's next for her? Like, where do you see her career going? She's 23, mate. She is nowhere near her prime. She's got 10 years before she comes anywhere near her prime.
Yeah, I mean, the key is the key, number one, is just to make sure she stays healthy and that she enjoys this, and that's why it's such a, she has to really be part of the decisions and discussions about what she wants to do and all that. And I think not trying to push her into the 100-mile distance too early, if she ever wants to do that, right? But obviously she's got total, like, raw potential to win a race like the UTMB at the even longer distance. But I think 100K for her right now is plenty long enough. And it's only like her, I think, her second solo 100, she did, because Trail Walker's a team race. So I mean, she's only done a couple that distance to begin with. And so, yeah, let's keep her healthy. Let's and and in the short term, Thailand, I think she'll do the 100K again in Thailand in December. That'll be kind of, I think, the for the rest of the year, the main focus. There's also the trail and mountain running world championships in Chiang Mai, which is a great opportunity. But with that race, all this kind of political stuff with the running associations and all that, it just totally is so not in the spirit of helping the athletes in the best way oftentimes, because if you don't have, I don't even think Nepal has an official association, or if it does, it's just not, I think they should let anybody enter that race, regardless if they have a track and field or association body that's set up and can officially send them under their national flag and all that. So, we're still looking into that. The same thing with Stingray too in the Philippines. It's not clear whether, and even with Chung in Hong Kong, like the Hong Kong, whatever they are, athletic associations, they're the ones that have the right to choose. And the whole thing is just a mess, in my opinion. So the mount, it's just kind of a shame, but hopefully the mountain and trail running world championships in November, that does get kind of sorted out with benefiting athletes more and getting there without the politics of these associations. If that is the case, hopefully she's in Thailand for two big events at the end of the year.
Yeah.
How's her body holding up a couple of days out, Ryan? Did the Achilles just didn't flare up at all?
Dude, it's perfect, nothing at all, and she's feeling great. Actually, yesterday we were in the backyard here, and she was out walking around somewhere, and some dog, she's so small, some huge dog started chasing her, and she came sprinting back. I couldn't believe how fast she was running. That's it's only a few days, and luckily she didn't get bitten. But no, she feels great. She's over the moon right now. She's in such good spirits and just soaking it all up. So yeah, it looks That's good awesome. For her. Yeah.
We need a link to that physio in Kathmandu.
Yeah.
What a performance though. And after that, going into UTMB, you must have be thinking, right, one down, one podium done. What are we going to do next? And how was that? So you had Wong, Chung, Jay, or Quadzilla, as I remember you used to call him, and Stingray. So Jay from Thailand, and John Rayalifa from the Philippines. And how were they all doing going into the race? Because you'd spent whereas Sunmaya had only arrived a couple of weeks before, or 12 days before, the rest of the team had actually been in the Alps for a bit of time, right? So they hadn't been preparing in the heat of Hong Kong. Although I do remember seeing Chung did like 500 kilometers, 100 kilometers a day, 5 days running or something, didn't he? Back in July. So that was fairly close. His legs must have been pretty done in after that escapade. But yeah, how was the training block for the rest of the team going into UTMB?
The whole idea was to get the boys here all early to Europe, at least like 7 weeks, and to we'd never done that before, give them the best chance of success to really live, breathe, and stay in the Alps longer. And and part of that was doing the Valderon race. Chung in the end couldn't do the race, didn't work out, but Jay and Stingray did. There was that typhoon in Hong Kong, and that kind of delayed everything, so we missed some altitude training days that really would have helped. So the guys really suffered with the altitude in the end of that race, but it was just nice to get still like a race under the legs in Europe. And Chung then came out soon after, and then we got him on, that whole personal, amazing 2 week, really like a running expedition that he did, the GR5. That was just, beautiful. And in terms of base training, it was actually really, I think it worked out really good for him. Because he didn't come out of it with any injuries. He managed his pace. He did it in 2 weeks. It was very, very tough, but he Chung, overall, all the guys didn't have the result they wanted, right? And for a different reason, each of them, I can kind of walk through what happened and stuff. But yeah, with Chung in particular, I think Chung really kind of, Chung's just like a machine. You look at what he's done with 4 trails and then running 500 kilometers in 5 days in Hong Kong in the middle of like summer heat in May.
Yeah.
Some of the, crazy endurance feats this guy's done. And even at GR5, it had like 100,000 feet of elevation, over 30,000 meters. And it was nuts, but I think Chung finally kind of found his limit. Because after GR5, he actually did he did another training block that was probably too much. He did another like a 50K and 100K between that and UTMB, and I just don't think that was totally necessary. He could have done just a little bit more speed work and not quite as much volume. He was on some of the recce's too with the team, and so all that combined, he was good for 100K, but then like I said, he realized there's a limit, and he had to dig really hard to get that, like he still finished in just about 24 hours, got 33rd. Remarkable considering what he had to, how he had to pull through and just with everything he had in his legs. But it really came, the last few hours for him was extremely tough, cramping. He even, stopped. He never stops. He had to stop several times and just like, gather himself. And so mentally probably dug deeper than he, has ever. And also physically, I think as well. So, amazing, honestly, what he did. But he definitely, how it is. It's great to be on, the podium and all that. But it's like when the races don't go well, the learning is like 10 times more valuable, right?
Yeah.
And he's walking away with a huge amount of experience of just what the limit of what he can do, and just and everything. And it's not, but he didn't, Chung didn't have really anything to prove to begin with. So he's podium 2 times the last 2 UTMB before this. Is like, what more does he need to do here? So it was also kind of a fun risk for him. Okay, it's always that knife edge of peak performance and recovery, and where is that edge for each athlete? And there's so many factors beside, obviously age is one of them, so it's constantly shifting as you get older, and also just how much you've done, not just in the last 2 months, but in the last few years, in terms of just your body, and that's kind of what happened with Stingray. I can talk a little bit, but you have to, and it's always just a knife edge, and it's so hard to know if you're gonna nail it, because when you're doing that kind of volume, like in Stingray's case, he felt so strong, going into the race, because he'd been doing this huge training block. He's like strong as he's ever been. But you can get through 100Ks and have a short taper and really just nail it. But when you're talking 100-mile, that knife edge gets sharper and sharper in terms of having enough time to get to feel strong that entire distance, 170K. And yeah, that's so yeah. And sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, right. So, did Andy Dubois, was he working with the entire team on their coaching plans through these training blocks as well?
No, Andy has been just wonderful as a really like a coach consultant for the team. Yeah. And his role is really to come in as athletes need him, and especially work with the younger athletes and those that are not as experienced. But somebody like Chung has been racing at such a high level for 10 years. He knows his body. He's a coach himself.
Yeah.
So, but it's still, of course, we always can get opinions and stuff. But Andy was focusing on Sunmaya and Stingray.
Yeah.
Um,
and so moving on to Stingray, he's done really well in Triple C before. I remember he put in a good race, I think 2019 in Triple C, right? And this was his first full UTMB. No, so he did 2021 UTMB, but DNF, right?
Yeah.
So his perfect distance. I always saw him as like 100K was kind of his sweet spot, like his sort of like 70 to 100K. And so after him doing UTMB last time, did you think, oh look, maybe the 100-mile distance isn't really what we should be aiming for Stingray? Maybe we should be sticking to the kind of mid-distance ultra, or but I suppose after DNFing, was he like, I've got to come back and take this on?
Yeah, and more than that, after that race, we had this great opportunity with UTMB Thailand for Stingray, and there was no question. In UTMB Thailand, he was going to do the 100 miles. He had a point to prove. He knew, because last year Stingray's issue was he had a bunch of injuries, ongoing niggles and injuries in the summer and in the spring. So he came into UTMB just undertrained, and we knew it was like, but he's already in the race. It's already committed, and it was like, okay, let's we knew it was going to be risky, and he came around right the last couple of months. So he's obviously still got some. We didn't like put him on the start line like injured or something, but he just didn't get the training block, the longer distance or longer distances that he really needed in that training block. So after last year's UTMB, he really wanted to go to UTMB Thailand and do the 100-mile, even though he could have chosen the 100K. And he absolutely tore the roof off that race. I mean, in terms of his performance, world class. He finished second. He chased the top, like he chased the 5th ranked 100-miler in the world the whole way around that course in Thailand. And he finished only like 20 minutes or something back. And yeah, so that was for him a career changing moment where he's like, yeah, I can do the 100-mile distance too, but I can also do 50K, 100K. So going into this year, like huge confidence after December's Thailand performance, and then also being 2 months in Europe, doing some bigger training blocks at higher altitude. And he honestly, going to the race, Stingray had the best lead up of anybody, because Chung, we knew Chung was going to be risky, overdoing it with everything going on with the GR5 and all that. Jay got COVID, which we can talk about in a minute. And yeah, so Stingray, I mean, he did like he did a couple like 200-kilometer, 10,000 meter weeks in his buildup. I mean, and felt great, like recovering well, felt great. And but what happened was we were really trying to. I mean, ultimately, it's the advice and coaching that I give, and of course Andy also gives. It's ultimately the athlete is living in their own body. They have to make some final decisions themselves. And I think with Stingray, he just was so overexcited and eager and feeling so strong. He needed like one more week taper, because he got like 100K into it, and he lost his legs, and he shouldn't have. He also started really fast. That could have affected, but he didn't feel like, he didn't like try to stay with the lead pack. So it's not like he totally cooked himself, and he said he felt smooth. Although, he was battling. You look at their time is insane. 9 hours in the Courmayeur. I mean, it's like ridiculous. The first 80K. So yeah.
Where did he finish up in the end, Stingray? What was his final time and position?
He ended up at 80th. but Jay and him were like, Jay and him were like 14th and 15th, like halfway through or something. They were right in the mix. They were so in position to have the race their lives. And Stingray just lost his legs. And it was weird. It was more on the downhills that was bothering him. His leg just seizing up. And that shouldn't, if you're doing 200-kilometer training weeks, that there's no way that should be happening at like 80, 100K. So I think he just needed a bit more recovery, and maybe he could have pulled off the gas a little bit in the first 30K. But again, I mean, huge learning for him, experience. And the thing about Stinger that was so nice, Scott, is he was so determined to finish, even though his whole race unraveled. He was walking every downhill for the last like 6 hours or something, walking like slow walk. And he still finishes in the top 100, probably the best finish in the history of his country. So, and he did it with a smile, whereas last year he was so disappointed when things didn't work out. He basically stopped and, I can't run anymore. Why should I run? I can't run. I mean, why should I continue? I can't run. Totally different attitude. He stuck it out, and he had a lot of supporters, behind him and stuff. Not just our team, but Filipinos like here in Europe as well as back home. And it was so nice to see him just stick it through, finish the race, and he with a smile. And so it's still a real positive experience. But he was gunning for the podium. That was in his mind, and I mean, mentally and physically, he's totally has podium, potential.
He's still 31 as well, Ryan. I mean, he's still got yet to find his absolute prime as well. So he'll learn a lot from this race, and it's good to see him stepping up to the miler distance. I mean, I think second position in the UTMB for Thailand, 22 hours. Like that goes to show what he can do. Like, so yeah, excited to see what the next few years holds for him. And like, he's a legend in Philippines. Like, they absolutely like worship him as well, don't they? So he's like the Manny Pacquiao of trail running, isn't he, for the Filipinos?
Totally, yeah, totally.
And then moving on, lastly, Jay, who's he ran the 100K at the UTMB for Thailand. He's also, how many times has he run UTMB before? It's a couple of times, right?
This was his third time. Jay had the, like, Jay and myself both got COVID. It was kind of, I mean, it was obviously unfortunate, but also we were lucky. It happened early enough where it didn't totally wreck our prepper. I mean, because for me too, I was trying to cram in so much training. I lost 3 weeks. And Jay probably lost 2 weeks. He, being younger than me, he bounced back a bit quicker. The B5 symptoms weren't very mild in France, but at least for me. But anyway, he lost 2 weeks of training, so that was a bit of a hiccup in his preparation in Europe. But I think he still got what he needed in. It wasn't perfect, but he went into the race confident. He's got all of his experience under his belt, and he had such a great first 80K. And Courmayeur, he's like in the top 20. He's feeling 9 hours also, feeling smooth, was not like very calm. But Jay, I don't want to say, I mean, it definitely is just a little bit of bad luck, but also a little bit of it's just like the reality of this sport is probably the biggest reason people DNF is because their stomach, and
I read in a note from Gillian. I read in his Facebook post. He said like UTMB is like an eating competition.
I mean, yeah. And Jay, like, he has to change something. And we did a big review yesterday and analyzed everything that went in his stomach, from his pre-race meal to when he started throwing up. and because he was smooth all the way 80K into Courmayeur. I was actually there because him and Stingray came in more or less together, and he looked great, felt great. It was on the next climb out of Courmayeur near the top that something went wrong, and was it just the too many different kinds of food that he mixed together? That could have been one thing. Maybe he had a little bit too much. Like he drank some Coke a little bit early, and sometimes that can. But I mean, it's kind of hard to say. We still he needs to really experiment. I think overall he needs to probably simplify what he takes. Chung does such a good job of this, where he just, makes it really like, 50% of his nutrition will be one thing, and then like a few other things, and just like try to minimize the chance of like too many different things in the stomach. But then you also need variety on a 100-mile race too, where you get sick of one thing too. So it is a fine balance, but I think he also might have just ate a little bit too much. When I was looking at the quantity, comparing it to like the Chung, it seemed like maybe he could have pulled that back a little bit more. But like I said, right? It's like, it's the number one reason people don't finish these kind of races as the stomach goes. It happens to world champions like, Courtney on the women's side. She's had numerous stomach issues in big races before. Many others that, it's been the same.
She's too busy eating chips and beer in races. And so...
Yeah. So I think with Jay, the main thing will be just experimenting in Thailand, especially. That's going to be the next big event for him, and changing some things up, and hopefully he can tweak some things that gives him a stable stomach, because he has no problem in that 80-100K distance with his stomach. It's only when you're going that, and I've been in 7-day expedition races with Jay where he's had no problems with his stomach. But it's just when it's running only for so long, it triggers some other stress in the body that really is like nothing else. And you know what I mean?
You're going at like a faster pace, aren't you? And I suppose you would have been acclimatized to the altitude, but often that can be that can have an impact as well. But
he was living in Chamonix for a month before. He had such a good like situation. Yeah. So it wasn't, but yeah, you're right. Altitude can totally, but in his case, that wouldn't have been it. He'd been up, many, many times as high or higher than the course. And so I think, Jay ended up 55th. He found a way. He was so close to throwing in the towel. Champagne lock, his eyes were just bloodshot. His face was agony. And he'd been running for hours with no fuel. And I just said, Jay, if you need to throw in the towel, it's your decision. There's no pressure, man. But like, just see if you can maybe just see if you can walk to like, not even the Triumph, but the 4 class. Like, it's like a sort of a drop off before you drop into the next assistant point. I just said, we'll be there, and walk there. Let's see if you can like just, and also in that CP spent like 30 minutes just sitting down. Like, I just let's just like reboot, because sometimes you just got to completely start over. And he slowly pulled back, and by the last 2 mountains, he wasn't full power, but he ran the downhills, he ran the flats, and he was what he ended up like, still like 55th overall. And for Asia, he was like, what, I got a list here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was seventh top finisher from Asia. Stingray was ninth. That's including all the Japanese. A lot of Japanese, did fairly well.
Yeah,
that's Japanese, Chinese. So
will he be going for the 100-miler at UTMB for Thailand?
I think it would be good for him, because I think it's an opportunity for him on his home turf to really rather than wait a year to like experiment with a new diet or whatever he's going to do. I mean, he should, I think it'd be better for him to sooner than later to experiment with a totally different nutrition plan and to see if he can get over the hump, so to speak.
Are you going to be out there, Ryan, for the trail championships in Thailand and then UTMB?
We'll see what happens with the trail champs and kind of how this kind of like I was mentioning earlier, all the political qualifications with the country associations and all this stuff plays out, and whether we really, have a presence there. But for Thailand UTMB, absolutely. That's a highlight of the year. Just last year, such a well put together race, and they host it so well. And Chiang Mai is kind of like a second home in Asia for me personally too. So it's like, yeah, I got to be there.
Nice.
For
I mean,
sure.
just on the politics of it all, like since you mentioned that, like, was there much talk in Chamonix, or has there been much talk about the changes to the rules for entry to UTMB? Because we're seeing, I was reading an article earlier that was saying it might not be as competitive again because it's just going to get that much harder, even for the elites to get in. You mentioned Val d'Aran. You've got to now do these qualifying races to get in. What do you think?
This is a super important topic. Not just this, but several kind of subtopics on this whole side of things and I do have a lot of opinions. I won't maybe get into like the whole thing in great detail, but in a nutshell, I think we need to be real careful. I mean, UTMB is doing something wonderful with really the being the de facto world championships for the sport. It's doing, I mean, incredible event. Things we talked about already. It's super special, many years, but at the same time, they've clearly made a power move to almost like monopolize the sport. I think there's a real risk that this throws things out of balance if they're not kept in check a little bit. We want to definitely see the smaller and other bigger races that are not part of UTMB still flourish and still give racers variety. I'm very disappointed that they are not following the TRA, the ranking system, and they've created their own system. That does not make sense at all to me. I mean, they were involved in the creation of the original ranking system. Why do they need to now go on and make their own? I mean, obviously it's for selfish reasons to promote their own events, but it doesn't do service to the sport. And in addition to all that, I'm extremely disappointed about the level of prize money. These are at the elite level, or for the elite racers. I mean, there should have been a way, way bigger prize purse on the line. It wasn't even clear before the race. What is the prize purse? I'm not even clear now for Sunmaya. Like, how much is she going to get? It's like, it's just so silly. It's like hidden on the website. It's like, I mean, it's like, it's not even clear. So, I mean, that kind of stuff, it's, come on, this is like, the sport now has grown to a point, it's professional. It's, I have some ideas on for the elites, I think, that can maybe help them. I'm just trying, I had some nice talks with some of the Americans and others that hopefully, might help. But I think this sport's in a really, critical juncture. Maybe we can talk on a future podcast with some others together about this whole side of things, but it's a real important time, the way where things go this year, and so it's yeah.
I mean, I think especially from an Asia perspective as well, you could see how, I mean, you mentioned earlier that, Sunmaya kind of got lucky in that she met the right people. She got the opportunity to come and race elsewhere. But, if your only way into UTMB is to race one of their events, and I think in Asia, it's now, what is it, Hong Kong, there's a couple in China and Thailand. If you can't get to those races, which a lot of the talent from, wherever it is, the Philippines, Indonesia, if you can't get there, you're not going to get the chance to shine on that bigger stage.
Yeah, well, that's
yeah,
and getting sponsorship for these athletes is kind of a chicken and egg, as you said. Like getting Sunmaya, and they didn't really want to know. They hadn't seen her race. They weren't sure what she could do, and it's like they need to get there to prove it, to be able to get the support. And so, yeah, it takes people like you, Ryan, to bet on these athletes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like I said, I think this is a critical year, and things we need to be, I mean, we value, of course, I mean, we value what they're bringing to the table. We value, what the level of events they're organizing and their ambition and stuff. But at the same time, you have to be, you got to make sure the elite athletes are getting, also benefiting as the sport's growing, and at the same time, we don't want a monopolization of where the whole sport is branded by one thing, and you know what I mean. And of course, Ironman now is involved too. They bought 40% of UTMB, so they're flush with cash, and they obviously have additional ambitions, probably that and pressures that come from that side. And but it's not this isn't Ironman. It's not one brand in one in one sport, so to speak. So I think it's going to take a collective effort, and that's going to very much include the elite athletes to be able to help direct the conversation and also put a little bit of pressure to make sure that the sport doesn't just get overtaken by one series, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, the same can be said for adventure racing as well, and the ARWS, and there was there's been sort of challenges happening there, but I think that itself could be a podcast on its own, and we should definitely pick that discussion up as well, Ryan. But like, back to UTMB, outside of your team, what performances blew you away? Like, what most impressed you on the day and night?
I mean, it was I mean, one of the big things, of course, was just how the top 100 just, how they just they really decimated each other. It was just epic. I think, like, I was talking to Deng was the top mainland Chinese finisher. He finished in 23 hours, and he was 20th place. Last year he would have been on the podium, top 10.
Chung came sixth with a similar time, right?
He was, yeah. I mean, every year is different with the weather and all that too. That was a hotter year, and Chung definitely has a faster potential time given now what he's done and stuff. But I mean, the risk and the excitement and how people, I mean, wow, just the battle up front was something else. And the attrition that you saw, just how many world class, world leading, stars of the sport, how they were just absolutely torn apart and broken. And oh man, it was and so many of them threw in the towel in the end, and it made for exciting drama. I was also really impressed just with, one thing that kind of stuck out to me too was there was such a huge contingent from Thailand in particular. Obviously that, having the race there has helped, as well, but I forget, you have to look up the numbers, but I forget what it was, but I think was it 30 or more, maybe 30 or 40 Thais finished the UTMB this year. And, just obviously, taking, most of them were, 30 plus hours but it's just so cool to see that the sport in Asia like that really taking hold, and how many would take on this, one of the toughest courses, on the planet, 170 kilometers, and they're, imagine a lot of those racers are from Bangkok. They show up here late. They're not fully adjusted the altitude, and they're finishing this absolute monster course. Pretty cool to see.
Did you see Esther go through at all, Ryan? I think she finished 5th, right, from Hong Kong.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. I didn't in the end, no. But yeah, great. Great result as well. I was trying to think. Was it 5th? I'm looking at the.
Yeah, 5th.
I think maybe. Sorry.
Yeah, she finished 5th.
In CCC or UTMB?
UTMB.
Okay, yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that was just really cool to see a country like Thailand. That's a lot of people wouldn't realize, how much the sport has grown there. But that's such a great example, and just to show in Asia or to show the world like what's happening in Asia. And you guys are well know being in Asia, that just like the number of races now and unbelievable in Thailand that are over 100 kilometers or more, and the thousands of people joining each race and et cetera. But they definitely did themselves proud at this year's UTMB.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome, Ryan. It's been great hearing your experiences and the positivity. I mean, I'm sure that there's a certain amount of disappointment from Chung, Jay, and Stingray, like especially given at halfway they were in the sort of top 20. But what a competitive year! I mean, obviously Killian's performance, that the top 5, top 6 were just, Tom Evans from the UK, and it was just unbelievable to see that. So and I take it the team will be back again next year. There's going to be like what are the main changes that you're going to be taking into 2023?
Yeah, I think Sunmaya for sure. She's so, with her success here and all that, she's going to be so hungry to be part of this again. With the guys, I think Chung has 3 editions in a row. Let's see those. He's really enjoying with his career, kind of focusing a little bit more on not just racing and giving back more with his coaching and all of that, and what he's doing with the youth in Hong Kong, but also on some of this, these Project Endless like expedition runs. He's gonna have, I think, probably a couple of those next year, as far as for his focus. Maybe Taiwan, and maybe in the States or somewhere else. So awesome. That I think is yeah. And then I know Stingray's so hungry to come back and have a good race, and Jay too. Jay's had kind of bad luck for 3 different years here, and I've always said, Jay's. I mean, people have having Jay's the one athlete on the team I've raced because of his adventure race background and being so on the team for over 12 years. I've raced together with him in so many situations, mountain bike, trail run, and adventure racing, where the guy is so world class, and his age. Jay's 37 now. One of these years he's going to have the race of his life and show the world like his true level for mountain running. He already has, of course, in Asia and stuff, and he has on the adventure racing circuit. But I think here he's still eager to show what he can do, and he's had you need a bit of good luck too at this kind of a race. No matter what. So yeah, he's that's kind of Jay. So it's Thailand will be our big focus in December, and then we'll like we said earlier too, kind of see what's happening with the rest of the with the UTMB developments and their whole series and all that, but also try to really make a point to look at what other events outside of that too might be good to support, not just for the athletes, but also for the organizers. Yeah,
beautiful. Look, Ryan, we love following the team. Massive congratulations to everyone. But Sunmaya, just what a performance! Like 23 years old. I'm like, honestly, she's the next superstar runner. Like after Mirabai coming out of Nepal, and can't wait to see what the team help her do. Like I love the way that with it, like having a team around her just can help her get to the next level. So yeah, keep it up, mate. Enjoy your last few days in the Alps before you head back to prison in Hong Kong. I know you've only got 3 days quarantine. Actually, it's all right this time. I know you've done a couple of quarantines over the last few years, so this one will be a piece of cake for you, mate.
Well, I'm actually going to Oregon first for a couple of weeks, so okay. But yeah, I'll be back in October. And no, thank you guys so much. It's great to it's great what you're doing with the podcast, and love being part of it. And like I said earlier, I just want to remind the viewers again, probably this weekend or in a few days time, we're going to have a great, nice video kind of recapping, not just the race itself, but kind of a little bit more to what happens behind the scenes with the support and stuff. So it's fun it's a unique animal. You know, there's 15 of us here involved this year, and it's nice for people to see, like, to really have your best chance of success here, how important it is to have, you know, a whole team involved in the process. And so anyway, yeah, like I said, a short video will be out soon if you on our YouTube.
Yeah.
So maybe you can plug that later.
Awesome. Yeah, the North Face Adventure Racing team. So you got some incredible content on there, like all really well shot, really well done. You got some great videographers that work with you as well. So yeah, check it out. Ryan, nice one. Thanks for jumping on, mate. Appreciate it. Speak soon.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
The Endurance Asia podcast.
And always tell a truthful story if they ever ask. Stop the complaining, cause things ain't that bad.